This is part of my Learn Medicare Billing, my Zero to Paid course. And basically what this is, hang on. This is taken from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. At the top right, actually right above the little video of me, that is the cash flow quadrant. If you guys aren't familiar with Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's a great book. It's like 200 and something pages, super easy read. You can do the audio, you can do the book. It's just kind of a primer. I mean, it's not heavy reading, but it will go a long way in helping you start to understand and think differently about money, about finance, about business. So above me is from his book. The E stands for employee. The S stands for self-employed. The B stands for business owner, and the I stands for investor. And in my Zero to Paid Medicare Billing course, which starts tomorrow, I go through each one of these levels because I think it's important to have an understanding of, you know, what it is that you're trying to achieve, where it is that you're trying to get to, what your goals are. The worst possible scenario is you misunderstand what you're actually trying to do. So let's run through these briefly so that I can kind of give you guys an overview right now. So number one, or I should say number four, the bottom level of the pyramid, I turned it into a pyramid, is the employee. Most of us, probably all of us, have been employees at some point. I can remember my first job as a dishwasher. Like, you're going to be an employee, a W-2 employee. The employee makes up the foundation of any organization, any business. There's more employees at the bottom than there is executives and owners at the top. The problem with being an employee is you get paid last, right? And these are concepts from the book. They take taxes out, they take benefits out. You have the least amount of control over what you do, when you do it, how you do it. You have to request vacation time. You have to do all of this stuff, right? You do the most work, you make the least money. That is the essential kind of problem with being the employee. And that's the frustration that brings most of you into my group, is you're sick and tired of being the employee. You know that you're good at patient care. You know that patients are coming into the clinic looking for you specifically. They don't want to work with Joe and Bob and Mary and John. They want to work with you. And so you've put in your time, you've developed your skill, you've improved your knowledge. Now you want to go out on your own. And what most clinicians end up doing is they move up one level to self-employed. This would be your classic mobile therapist. This would be your classic clinic owner operator. You're the one doing everything. And so I would say truthfully, out of the four levels on this pyramid, the absolute most challenging level to be in is the level of the self-employed individual. Yes, you get some freedom. Yes, you get some tax benefits and breaks. Yes, more of the income is coming to you, but you have all of the responsibilities of the employee, plus you have all of the responsibilities of the business owner. You don't get the privilege of being in two areas at once. You have everything on your shoulders. And so while there's absolutely pros to being self-employed, there's also, I would say, bigger cons, especially in our profession. The self-employed individual could also be looked at as the freelancer, the creator. And so if you're moving into an area of high value, high net worth, if you're looking at charging $500, $1,000, $3,000 per episode of care, per treatment, now we can talk, you know, because now you have the space to breathe. You don't have to do 30 visits a week. You don't have to do 20 visits a week. A great example of self-employed would be like a professional athlete, right? If the professional athlete isn't on the court, they're not making money, at least theoretically. If, you know, J-Lo was singing at the New Year's Eve in Times Square, if she's not singing as a self-employed individual, she's not making money. She gets paid to perform. Now, of course, she also has records and royalties and all the other stuff that's out there. But you as a therapist, Unfortunately, you don't do that. So if you're not treating patients, if you're not producing billable units, if you're not selling visits, you're not bringing in money, but you still have all the responsibilities of the business owner. So, this is kind of the golden handcuffs, right? It's the trap that looks appealing. It seems like this is where we want, because we want independence and we want to be out of the supervision of the employer, but we go out of the frying pan into the fire. To me, the ultimate level is the business owner, and we'll talk about investor briefly, but the business owner is the person that has built a business. A business runs independent of you, the clinician. So if I got hit by a truck tomorrow on my way to work, nobody would even realize it because we have systems in place. The patients would still be seen. The business would continue to operate. The marketing would continue to happen. Collections would come in. Accounts payable would be paid. Like, everything is handled. It's a luxury for me to go in and treat patients. I do it because I enjoy it, but it's certainly not dependent on me as a physical therapist. That is because we've built a business. A business has structure. Just like your body has bones and muscles to move it, the business has to have structure, your policies, your procedure, an organizational board, some system that allows individuals working within the organization to do their job well, to achieve the outcomes that you expect as the employer, as the business owner. And at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, there should be a system and a policy in place to address it. If you're still in the position as a pseudo business owner where something bad happens and it comes to you, you haven't finished building the business, right? You're right back in as an employee. If somebody doesn't know how to handle a phone call, if somebody doesn't know how to address a leaky faucet in the bathroom, if somebody doesn't know how to empty the trash and what to do, where to put it, where the bags are, all of these mundane tasks that seem like, anybody with common sense should be able to do it. If there isn't something written in a policy and a procedure teaching somebody how to do it, you don't have a business. You're still stuck in the self-employed role. All of the problems come to you. And that is really why clinicians that go out of the employee category, trying to move toward the business owner category, get burnt out because you can't handle all of that. Right? So my objective, my goal, my hope for you is that I can share some ideas, some strategies that will help you kind of understand, okay, hey, I actually don't want to be a business owner. I actually want to be the absolute best clinician humanly possible. I want to be the best in my niche, and I want somebody else to handle the business, right? Okay, that is completely attainable as a goal. We just need to develop a plan to help you get there. But if you do want to become a business owner, you are on the path out of day-to-day patient care. And I often recommend, don't hire an administrative person first. The first person you should hire is a clinician. The first person you should hire is the person that puts you out of a job as a clinician. Because if you're busy treating patients and you try to hire an admin person because you're getting too busy, you can't adequately train and teach that admin person how to do their job, which makes your job 10 times more difficult. So the first thing you should do is hire a clinician to replace you. Then you fill the role of administrative assistant, of biller, of marketer, of, CFO and everything else. And as you're doing those other jobs, you are creating systems so that when you replace yourself, so first you put yourself out of a job as a therapist. Awesome. Step number one. Then you build systems in each of the other jobs to put yourself out of a job in those things, right? So you answer the phone. You record how you answer the phone. You literally turn your video camera on and you record yourself answering the phone. And then you script out what you did, what questions you asked, what information you need to collect from the prospective patient. When the patient asked about this, how did you answer it? When they ask about that, how did you answer it? And now you have all of that written down into a procedure that somebody else can follow. And the best way to test your system is to bring somebody into your organization that's never done the job, give them the procedure, let them read through it, and then have them carry out the task. I should be able to literally grab somebody walking down the street, put them in my front desk, give them the procedure for answering the phone, and let them answer the phone and schedule a new patient without asking me a single question. When you get to that point, now that teeny tiny little piece, you just built a part of the structure that is your business, right? And so as you build each of these pieces, because you're the one doing it, then you move on, you put yourself out of the job, then you hire the administrative assistant to do the job that you've just outlined and did all the procedures for. And then you go to marketing, and then you go to finance, and then you go to accounts payable, and then you go to all of the other areas until eventually you're the business owner. Now you actually have a business that you're owning. And with time, depending on, again, where you want to be, you could step back into patient care, because patient care should be something you do as a passion. Patient care should be something you do because of the joy, not something you do to pay the mortgage. Patient care should not be something you do to make a car payment and to, put your kids through school, to pay off your student debt. The worst case scenario is you find yourself in a situation where you say, geez, if I don't build 3 more units, I can't afford my car. If I don't, book 5 more patients, I can't afford my house. Like, that is a horrible position for us to be in. And I know that that's a topic for another discussion, but I know that you guys, so many of you are coming out with huge debt burdens, and you're coming out with so much frustration over, how are you going to pay this? The interest is rising, reimbursements going down, regulation is going up. So that's why I think it's important that we start to look at some of these kind of procedural, structural topics of, okay, so maybe I don't have to see every patient. Maybe, and this is a challenge for us as clinicians, maybe if I hire a therapist to treat my patients, maybe that therapist doesn't do quite as good of a job as I would do, as you would do, but they're probably doing a good enough job. Right. And so while you're building the business, you let them do their job. It might not be the way you want it done. It might not be the way you would have done it. And maybe their patient outcomes aren't quite to the level that yours would be, but you now have the freedom to build the business, and then you can always step back into that role. And that was probably the biggest challenge my wife and I faced when we made the transition from being full-time clinicians to full-time business owners, where we would look at, and we had amazing teams, amazing clinicians, but in our minds, it's like, oh, that's not the way I would do it. I want them to do it my way. But they're professionals. They're DPTs, they're PTs. They went through school just like you did. They have the right and the independence and the autonomy to do what they believe is best. Let them do their job. You do your job. Your job now is a business owner. Build the structure, build the skeleton so that the muscles can move the business forward. And then, of course, the ultimate goal for so many of us is become an investor. And I just want to wrap up here by saying, look, you can occupy all of these levels at once. So like right now, today, I own and operate 2 physical clinic locations. One of my clinic locations I wasn't at. The patients were being treated, documentation was being done, the trash was being taken out, the mail was being opened, payments were being posted, claims were being sent. I had nothing to do with the operation of that clinic. I was at a different clinic. I did an initial evaluation. I did a couple patient follow-up visits. I wrote my documentation. So I was an employee at one clinic. I was a business owner of another clinic. At one time, we operated clinics down in Florida. I live in Ohio. I was an investor in those clinics, even though technically I owned the business at that point. I hadn't been down to Florida in over a decade. The team that was there does an amazing job. I would get, monthly revenue income from that clinic. I didn't make decisions on hiring. I didn't make decisions on firing, on marketing, on anything. They did everything that needed to be done. As a result, now they own that clinic and they've expanded it and they've opened 2 or 3 more clinics and they're doing phenomenal, but at one time I was an investor, I was a business owner, I was an employee simultaneously. And so I just want you guys to understand, like, as you look at this and you define your goals, it's important that we really look at what is it that we ultimately want. Do I want X dollars a year in income? Do I want time freedom? What is the priority? Yes, you can have both, but it's easier to focus on getting one goal as opposed to getting 5 goals. And there's nothing worse than thinking you want one thing only to realize 3 years later, you actually wanted something else. I think I want to be a business owner because I want independence and freedom and all of these things. But in reality, I'm not willing to give up control. I'm not willing to let other clinicians treat the patients. I'm not willing to, it's in our nature. That's what we are as clinicians. If you didn't think you could do a better job, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be in this group. You wouldn't be trying to improve yourself. So, it's not a bad thing. We just need to understand, recognize it's potentially a limitation and it's something that we need to work with. So guys, that's it. I wanted to introduce this concept to those of you who have not seen it. The book is a great book. Like I said, I bet you can find an audio version on YouTube somewhere. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Just start to look at money and finance in a different light so that you can let it work for you instead of you working for it. Guys, I hope this was helpful. I didn't get any comments on YouTube Live, but I will catch you guys probably again later on tonight. I'm going to try and do a couple more lives to help build the YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, of course, I appreciate the subscribe, but most importantly, take action on the information I'm sharing. I'll catch you guys later.